Ooh, so it's a technical problems. Let me fix that. All right, hello, welcome. Just fixing some technical problems last second, but thank you for joining and me in another happiness class. This is class number 14. It's a long course. We've gone through some of the foundation things that make us happy. Today we're talking about sex. It's a major part of our lives, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. It is connected to everything else we do. It's not like a completely independent part of our lives, and hopefully you'll see that. So I'll be talking about a couple of parts of sex. It'll be our mindset. That's where everything begins with us. The second thing is our connection with other people, and finally the techniques, which are the least important actually, because if you're not right, then everything else doesn't work. I'd like to say thank you very much to my brother Tariq for joining me.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, peace be upon you. Um, so I want to say a lot of people were saying that they're generally shy about coming on a live stream, never mind one about sex. So I really appreciate Tariq just being so chilled. He's actually quite a funny guy. You don't know what's going to happen, so we'll see. Um, and so a lot of people say, I'm shy, can't be on the show, but I'm shy as well, by the way. But I'm doing the show because I think this is really important. Let me just go through a few more basics about the show, or this class. It happens every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. UK time. The first 30 minutes is going to be about sex and different parts of what's relative to important about it. And the second half, the last 30 minutes, about anything to do with life. So ask your questions. The whole show is interactive. Looking forward to your comments or whatever you've got. Um, if you want to find out more about previous shows, and I have all sorts of like the notes for this show are all at bigquestionsanswer.com. You can see the website down there, and all the teachings that I express over here are based on Islam. Why Islam? Because it's the most inclusive religion. So one that says that you can go to heaven even if you're not a Muslim. It's scientific, so it's not just about faith, and it's comprehensive. It tells you everything about anything you need to do with your life. So, hopefully, you enjoy the show, and let's get started. So, let me copy paste stuff. We got always new things happening. So, control paste. The first thing I want to talk about is mindset. Don't train your mind out of love. And the sub sort of header, I'm going to explain that in three parts, that idea. But the subheader is love doesn't happen magically. So here's a brief comment. I'm going to be interested in what Derek thinks about it. We fall in love by repeatedly letting our brains fantasize about someone. So if you do that for someone who's not your partner, then you will stop loving your partner and being able to have good sex with them. What do you think, Derek? A couple of ideas there. I can repeat
Yeah, I
it.
agree. If you're with someone and you're not giving your attention to them and someone else, then of course that's wrong, isn't it? If you're fantasizing about someone else, then yeah, of course, yeah.
Cool. So I actually, as you said, an interesting thing. You said that's wrong, and I'm not even going for wrong and right, because I'm not. A lot of people, when they come to religion, they say, "Here are the rules, and that's the end of the story. That's the definition of wrong or right." What I'm doing here, I'm talking about to everybody, whether you believe in Islam or not. Okay, this is a logical show, and I'm saying, let your wrong and right be defined by happiness, even if it sounds terrible, right? Okay, and I'm saying that if you want to be good at sex, or you want to have a good relationship with your wife, okay, first of all, we have to, in the West, we have this idea that I've just watched a movie, any Hollywood movie you watch, okay, if it's talking about some people falling in love, it's as if it's destined, if it happened by accident, it's magical. And I'm saying no, love or falling in love, as it were, which is different to real love, I would say. It's a whole different. I call it romantic love. Okay, relatively new idea, by the way. At times of Shakespeare, it was actually considered a joke. Yeah, Romeo and Juliet is actually a comedy. Um, Romantic love is happens by concentrating on a person. It doesn't happen by accident. You know, if you have office romance, it's just because you've been looking at that person in the office for a long time without controlling your thoughts. And so if you let your mind wander, and let you, and I forgot, I'm supposed to quote something, so I forgot. God says in the Holy Quran, say to the believing men that they restrain their eyes, and say to the believing women that they restrain their eyes. So that's just tiny bit of the two verses of chapter 24, verses 31, 32. Okay, I keep forgetting to. Dara, you can remind me if I forget to do a quote in the beginning of each section. But anyway,
Okay.
so that's what I'm basing whatever I'm saying on, and it can mess with your mind. And so you need to start with that before you do anything else, moves and things like that. There's no point if you're already telling your brain something else. Your brain is highly susceptible to suggestion. That is what I'm saying. Anyway, cool. Let's go to the next point. So once you've accepted that or realized that that's how your brain works, then the next point, also part of controlling your mindset, is this idea: don't copy porn acting. So we let ourselves believe. So let me read the thing I've written. Uncontrolled looks will quickly become an addiction to fake sex in pornography. And so you will try to copy that behavior instead of having fulfilling a fulfilling relationship with your spouse. Did that make any sense? Uncontrolled looks lead to an addiction
Like,
to pornography, sex, fake, whatever, fake stuff. Shall I read it
yeah,
again?
so,
Oh, go on.
yeah. So it's just about controlling, like, uh, how you, so you can be attracted to anyone, but if you're, it's about, controlling them feelings, so you don't give them to anyone, you know?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say, there's two things I'm trying to say, I think. There's like there's a downhill spiral. If you don't control your thoughts and your looks, it can go into a dark place because pornography starts off light pornography, and you probably know, right? It just gets darker and darker and goes out of control. And that stuff, first of all, is fake and it's acting. It's really horrible. Somebody told me that there's some famous scene or something on pornography, right? But it was, in reality, it was so disgusting that people were holding their noses or something, and their plugs on their noses because it was so disgusting in real life, right? So you don't want to imitate that. It's really dangerous. Good to educate yourself about that reality, okay? Because we're happy to kid ourselves in terms of believing that stuff, right? Pornography. And so you can go into a dark place, and then when you copy that dark stuff, because it's not really good sex, right, you are copying a behavior that doesn't connect people. It's more like gymnastics and crazy moves and whatever, right? It's trying to be as extreme as possible. That's what pornography is, to get attention, to beat all the other videos and things like that.
You mean
So
you're
you don't.
getting rid of the intimacy or something? Is that what you mean? Like,
Yes, that's right. You're focusing on moves rather than a connection. You're not listening to the other person. You're not watching the other person, and so there's no. What's the point of sex if there's no connection between you? Yeah.
mm,
So cool. All right, and then the last point I want to make about this, the mindset part, which is really focusing on yourself before you focus on anything else, is don't focus on what you don't have. So they're all connected, these different points. Okay. So don't tease your brain by looking at things, including people. So I'm talking about generally iPhone, whatever, but then also people, yeah, that you don't have. Don't tease your brain by looking at things, including people that you don't have, as this causes stress and side effects such as erectile dysfunction, and stops you from enjoying what you do have, i.e., sex with a wonderful spouse. So there's all these, like, it just gets worse and worse. People wonder, oh, there's so much noise about erectile dysfunction. You hear about here and there, and all sorts of stress and whatever. We actually cause that stress. And to be good at sex, you have to be highly focused on what you're doing. You can't think about this or that because it ruins the whole experience. So, and you can get a lot of stress. You can get so much stress by thinking about not liking your partner, continuing from the earlier point I made. You can start stressing about all the other things that are not happening right in your life. And then that all, very importantly, ruins the experience, makes it really hard. So lots of people say, oh, we haven't had sex for ages and all this kind of stuff. And that's partly because of this. You can't do it if you're stressed. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that you can that's to do with like communication, so you can talk about it and you can discuss these things between yourselves, like uh, before you do it, so you're more comfortable at what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, you know? So that's another way for um, getting in the mode for it, you know?
Yeah, that's right. So
Mm,
it's hard to get in the mode if you're thinking about other people and other things and all the things
mm.
you don't have. So basically, I'm just pointing out that stress can be induced by looking at things you don't have. That's what I would almost define stress as. But yeah, cool. Appreciate that. Really looking forward to any comments people have. I was really, it'd be really good. It would improve the show if you've got comments that you really disagree with me, then that helps me explain things in more detail. But anyway, next point. I'll copy this and I'm going to not forget to do my quote. So I'm going to talk about connection. Don't be alone together. That's the main idea. And this is a quote from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Paradise is the home of the generous. You might say, hang on a minute, what's that got to do with anything? Hopefully, you'll see in a minute. And I'm going to explain this idea of don't be alone together by beginning with good people are more loving. Marry generous people if you want to have lots of sex, as they will sacrifice their personal plans to take care of you, which will lead to better understanding and teamwork. So I'm always squishing in one sentence like two or three ideas. So hopefully it's not too confusing. Marry generous people so you get sex, but also sex is kind of a sacrifice from your time. So that's why a lot of people don't do it, especially women, because they don't have the same urge. And that's good. Lots of sex is good for your communication. So some women say, "Oh, we don't want to do that. It's really annoying." And I'm saying it's good for both of you. So a couple of ideas. Any thoughts? Any disagreements? Happy for you to disagree with me, Tariq?
Yeah, I mean, like, uh, both men and women have this. I don't know if it's more or less, but I think it's the same, maybe. I don't know if it's more or less, but
Okay. So I'm going to say to
and
you, this is go on, go on.
the other thing you're saying about generous women, what do you mean by like?
So yeah, this is a point that's really unusual because most people just look for appearances, and in Islam, we're told that don't look for just the good-looking people, or the rich people, or the people who are from good families. Go marry people who are good. But why? Because good people are more loving in the long term. You can have good looking people who are really horrible. In fact, often they are, right? Okay, because they focus on the outside. People focus on the outside, okay, are not very nice in the inside. Okay. So that's the point I'm actually making, that this is a reason, one really good reason. If you want to have a good sex life, marry a good person, because sex is actually an act of generosity. But that's really different to what most people do. Any
They
thoughts?
just go for the looks and then is that what you mean? If you just go
Yeah,
for the looks, then personality obviously counts a lot, and That's what that counts as the generosity and
Yeah, I'm saying basically marry a nice person, because if you don't, you won't get much love. Never mind
yeah.
sex or anything. Yeah. Anyway, so cool.
Mm.
Um, by the way, when I do a quote, there are like a million other quotes behind it, but I'm only trying to stick to one quote to express an idea. But there's
Yeah.
so many others.
Yeah.
Tell me, I just quoted another thing, by the way, when I said the four things that people look for. That's another quote from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when they what people will look for when they get married. Anyway, the next point, also related to connection between people when having sex. All happiness truths lead to better sex. So, all the happiness truths taught in Islam decrease stress, improve happiness, promote good relationships, and all lead to you having better sex. That's it. I won't try to add to that for now. Is that quite hard to understand? I feel like I should put it in my own words or easier words. In other words, I'll say that everything I've said in the happiness classes, okay, lead to you automatically having better sex in your relationship. So all the stuff I said before, like being nice to people, even saving the environment, that attitude, okay, because to be saving the environment, you have to be generous to the environment, be a nice person, think of other people, not just think of yourself, and all these kind of things. I'm saying every single thing that Islam teaches you automatically makes you better at sex. You won't even necessarily have to watch this video if you did all the other stuff. All the other shows that I've been doing, which start from the ground up, was like your basic mindset and how to deal with stress, how to deal with anxiety, how to whatever, have good relationships with your neighbors, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff is going to automatically make you better at sex and have a better relationship with your wife or husband. What are your thoughts? It's quite a big claim.
Yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, so sort of things that encapsulates, as in all the truths or whatever we've been taught basically in the Quran. And so, yeah, I would agree with that. It's
Yeah.
just that you need to kind of like list a few what they are, what is, you know,
That's great. That's a really
that,
good point.
yeah.
So I listed how Islam. Okay, I said Islam decreases stress. Okay, I listed like three things. I said stress improves happiness, promotes good relationships. Let's talk about the stress stuff, right? If you think that if you wholly, like, it's the key thing about Islam, the definition of Islam is to let go and listen to God, let God take over your life. Now, if you experience that that is a reality of your life, like I do that, okay, and a lot of people do that, even if they're not Muslim. I hear a lot of good Christians say that they do that as well, right? They let go, let God take over. How stress free is your life, right? Once you're stress free, that's stress is a major barrier to good sex, right? Erectile dysfunction is just a result of that, one of the results, right? Okay, but just generally having things in your mind. How can you have good sex if your mind's filled with all sorts of your problems in your life? But if you don't have problems in your life, because all the big ups and downs are nothing, because you just let God take over, then no stress, no problems. Yeah, that's an example of what I mean. Yeah, so that was a good point, Derek. I should
So
make more.
separating it, like try to not think about work or think about other things, separate it before and
Yeah,
try to, yeah, basically separating, yeah,
yeah. So that's what I was
try
saying. Like
to,
Islam gets you automatically in the mindset of that,
mm,
in a good mindset for
try
sex.
to
Okay.
clear your mind basically.
Yeah. And the last
Mm.
point, so I'm always putting 3 points for each major point. So, last point within connection, don't be alone together. That means, hopefully, does that make sense? Don't be alone together. Can you understand that, by the way? Like you're having sex, but you're just doing your own thing. Each person's doing their own thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. I tried to
Mm.
have all these fancy little titles, but maybe they're really confusing. Okay, I just thought that was a fun thing to say.
Is it
Um,
mean don't just try to please yourself, basically?
yeah, that's it. You're on your own
Mm.
planet, and it doesn't actually work very well, which is something I'll talk about later, actually. So, lead by example by being generous. Okay, so this is continuing on this idea of being generous. This is a really important point. Okay, there's a major problem in West relationships, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim, who are living in Western societies, because Western society encourages selfish individualism, and people are just doing. You have to do something good for me before I do something good for you. This is a big problem in relationships. So I've run out of time, but any thoughts on that?
Lead by example. Not
By
sure.
being generous. Basically, I'm saying you be kind first. Don't wait for the other person. They will copy you because people do
Yeah.
copy good examples, is what I'm saying. So I'm trying to find my mouse. Oh, there it is. Okay. So next part, that, and then I'm going to read it as well rather than just say that in a second. Okay. So techniques respond to each other. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the techniques. They're the least important. And the first thing I'm going to say, although I'm going to talk about a little bit about techniques, but the first thing you got to know is don't get distracted by positions, which a lot of, especially young people, do, right? So Islam doesn't give too much importance to positions, which promotes gymnastic sex, I call it, okay, over connection sex, but does give some importance to the man on top position, which is briefly mentioned in chapter verse 190, where the most suddenly I can't say the word erogenous areas are in contact. Okay, so I'm not gonna. Islam is very a subtle religion and tries not to be too explicit. Okay, so hopefully people can figure out what man on top position means, trying to be as subtle as the Quran is. Um, and why would it, if we think about it, so if people don't know what erogenous means, it means the parts of the body that cause pleasure, right? So if you are in that position, it's going to cause the best sensations, but Islam also says be like free to try out different positions. That's another verse of the Quran. Okay, so there's kind of a balancing act, and I think it's important to have that creativity, have the freedom to have that creativity. At the same time, there's kind of a good final position, if you want to call it. But what I want to focus on is if you focus too much on the positions, which a lot of young people do, they read about Kama Sutra and all this kind of stuff from the Hindu philosophy, which is not true Hinduism, in my opinion. But anyway, um, then you get focused on gymnastics rather than connection, and you lose the whole point of sex. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, the fitter you are, the more you'll enjoy yourself, really. But if they mention that particular position, there must be a reason. It's not just like to please you. It might be it's more pleasing for the woman as well, you know. And yeah, so there are like it's not like there's all different positions, but there's more like stimulation in certain positions, for example.
Cool. So you said more pleasing for the woman, and I like you made that point because I want to make it clear we're talking about both men and women. This stuff is good for both people, not just for men. Just because we're both men, it doesn't mean we're only talking about from a man's point of view. That's one thing. Um, and yeah, so hopefully, and you said being about fit. I think yes, being fit to a certain extent, but not fit and in a sense that you can do all sorts of crazy moves because then that's exactly what I'm talking about. Gymnastic sex is a bad idea, okay? Because you're trying to copy this move or that move that you might have seen in some porn video or something. Of course, by the way, making it clear, hopefully, that watching porn is bad for you. I think that's pretty obvious for the previous thing, right? So I'm not recommending you watch porn. Um, and so try not to focus on positions, focus on your relationships, what the other person is doing, what they're liking. Maybe you communicate with them. Maybe you just watch what they're doing and what makes them happy, right? So that's what I'm saying. The next point I want to make is this. So last part of the techniques thing is last longer by focusing on the other. Okay. So I talk to people and I hear all the time that, oh, I lasted 6 minutes or something. That's really bad for any sort of a night. If you're having an experience with your wife and it only lasts 6 minutes, it's not very good. And I'm saying you can last as long as you want. And most people find that really surprising. And so you can try this very simple experiment. And again, this is very much part of Islam. And Dorrit, you didn't remind me. Okay, I
Did
didn't
I
do my
miss a quote?
quote. Yeah, I didn't miss.
Oh,
I didn't
sorry.
do my quote, which is going to explain this thing I'm going to say. Right? Sorry, Dorrit is my student, but he's also going to helping me out. Right?
I
The
haven't
student.
prepared for this, so I'm not. I don't know about any of these quotes you're gonna
No,
do,
you're not
but
supposed to know. You're
I
not supposed to know.
forgot.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
should have
yeah.
explained what Derek's role here is not to be prepared, just as unprepared as anybody watching this. So he's there to say, "Oh, I don't understand this" or whatever, because most people are going to be shy to express themselves, even in non-sex shows where just like anything, people tend to be very shy in the chat. So that's why Derek is here to help us all. Anyway, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, do not begin intercourse, that's sex, until she has experienced a desire like the desire you experience, lest, or, it's Old English for unless, you fulfill your desires before she does. So it's basically, don't just focus on yourself, focus on the other person. It's a two-way relationship sort of thing, yeah?
Mm.
So, yeah, so it's saying when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says something in the Quran, I mean, he says something, or God says something in the Quran, there are a lot of subtle meanings that you can take from it. And the thing I'm going to say is, if you want to enjoy sex longer, then generously focus on the other person's feelings. That way, your own feelings don't quickly go out of control. In brackets, ending your sexual experience, and you enjoy the other person enjoying you. Cool. I've finally got a comment says hello, but give me more than that iron eggs skill. Anyway, um, so yeah. Does that mean something to you? But anyway,
No,
all right, okay. Anyway, so Tarek, any
it's just
thoughts
not a
about?
question. That's all.
Yeah, give me a question or a comment more than hello. Anyway, but it's sort of in short, I'm saying, Tarek, that you can last as long as you want if you focus on the other person. You can experience it. And some people, like, you can literally go to the other extreme and just focus on something completely different, and you realize that you can keep going and you won't ejaculate, basically. So any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's all different techniques, but it's more. I wouldn't say why would you focus on something else just not to ejaculate? I mean,
That's right.
you
That's why
know,
you focus on your partner instead.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly. But you said
Rather
something
than
else.
feel
That's what I
pissed off.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of went to another extreme, but yeah, there's no need to
Mm.
go there. Yeah, and people find that, like, when I've said that to some guy, he was like, "What? Last more than 6 minutes? That's impossible." So this is, you can try it out, and hopefully your whole sex life will change in that way at least. And the last point, I was hope come on, iron eggshell, you can give me more than hello. Um, Eggshell? Not eggshell, egg skill. Sorry, you're not an eggshell. Sorry. Okay. So, shave. So, shave your armpits and your private parts and smell good. These are things that are taught in Islam. I have to say, I always try to say things that I do, and one thing I don't really do is work on wearing perfume. So now I've said it, I'm going to make an extra effort to do that. Okay, and the reason, for example, why is perfume important? I've done a bit of research, and it says women are more about more. I've probably written the sentence wrong, but women are more interested in how you smell than how you look. So that's a really interesting fact. So that you are more appealing to your partner. Can't seem to be running out of time much faster. Sorry, I didn't give you much time to say, but I'm going to actually stick to my schedule and get on to the second part of the show. And copy paste a question quickly. I've got a whole bunch of questions, but please, guys or girls, whatever, watching the show, please do ask your own questions. But until then, I'm going to copy paste questions I've got. Okay, so it says, what should you do if you seriously lack motivation to do anything useful in your life, basically? And I think that's a really important question. A lot of men find that as well, because men have the difficulty in they actually have to find a direction in their professional life, and a lot of women have a biological urge to have children, and that have some sort of direction automatically ingrained into them. So it can be really tricky. How do you find motivation? um, and so, and I do want to make it about both sexes, actually. So one is that if you people don't realize the lack of motivation comes from a whole bunch of other things. One, people think it's funny or not interesting to even think about the meaning or direction in their lives. And if you do that for long enough and go randomly enough in your life, you will find that there will be a point in which you can't be bothered to do anything, because you're doing stuff you don't care about, and you do it for so long that you kind of mentally wear out. We underestimate how important meaning is to our lives, and psychologists tell us, but we don't know about that, because it's like, when they go, what's the meaning of life? Oh, it's six or something, like as if it's a joke. It's not a joke, and it's really serious, and that's why so many people are suffering in their lives. So I'm going to try to make less comments, or talk less, and kind of pass it on to you. Any thoughts about that? This is not the whole answer, but that's part of an answer. What do you think about this need for meaning?
Yeah, for example, I think there was a psychologist. He was talking about how a man, uh, like you say, about different roles in life. Like a woman kind of knows that she what her roles are, and some men they don't know what their roles are. So, for example, if they lose their job or something, they'll go and into depression or something because they think that because they're not in that role anymore, it's like something terrible has happened, and they really can't move on from that or something like do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like they should know more clearly what their role is as a
Yeah.
man, or for example.
Cool. And so I should always try to quote from the Quran, or Prophet Muhammad. So there's two things I want to quote, and they work at different levels. One is sort of a really high level, I think, but maybe I'm exaggerating, and that is the purpose of life. Right? We really struggle with finding our purpose of life, but we first of all, we don't get to choose our purpose of life, really, because we didn't make ourselves. We're not our own inventor. Like, you know, if you make a camera, it has a function. If you make a robot, it has a job. Okay, so you didn't create yourself, so you don't get to choose your own your purpose. And your purpose, according to God, is to be at one with God. Right? It might sound really strange, but a very quick explanation would be, when you're connected with nature, you feel more happy. And as psychologists have found that as well. It's not just religious people saying that. Again, nature is a kind of reflection of God. So it kind of makes sense that we want to be connected with God. And it's the most meaningful thing. If you make loads of money and then you die, what are you going to do with that money? You don't take it anywhere, right? This is something more meaningful. And when we have deep in our minds something that's really meaningful, then we feel a lot more motivated. I find that a lot of converts say this kind of stuff, right? Converts to Islam, they go, we suddenly know where we're going in our lives. Okay. um I want to add, and the second thing I was going to say before I put Iron Egg Skills comment. I really appreciate that. I put it on the screen, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. The second thing is, the Quran also talks about people have different goals, but you Muslims, he says, or basically, well, anybody else can listen to it as well, should compete in doing good things. We love being good. Even Hitler wanted to be good, but in a really messed up way. He told he was the German people's savior, and nobody says they're bad. We all want to be good, and we're really motivated by that. We don't realize that. When we realize how important being good is, that can choose so many things in our lives. So we often do jobs that we hate because we're just doing looking for the money. If you do things because you care about them, it makes a difference. We suddenly get motivated. So if you want to understand motivation, do good things. You will be motivated automatically. Anyway,
It's
so lack
about
of
appreciation
Okay.
as
So
well.
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by appreciation? By other people?
It could be, yeah, yeah. So, um, maybe if your boss, for example, is not appreciative of what you're doing, you don't feel like doing that task uh, as someone who is more driven if their boss is maybe appreciating what they're doing, for example, and where a goal to reach, for example, you're heading for a goal, and yeah,
No,
and
I think that's a really good point. Okay, so but you don't want to be controlled by other people too much, even though yes, we do get affected by other people naturally, right? Okay,
but have some
but if
value.
you yeah, so if you have motivation because you know where you're going, but you're slowed down a bit by a horrible, annoying boss, then at least you still know where you're going. You got some motivation, and you can say, you know what, I still want to do. I know where I'm going in my life. I just need to find another job where I can do it. But you're not feeling completely lost. Is That's the kind of important difference. You don't want somebody else controlling your life, and you want to know where you're going. You want to have some sort of self motivation, whatever. Okay, anyway, but lack of motivation comes from lack of ambition. Iron's egg skill says, um, and that is also true. There is a biological thing, like if you have a low libido or low sex drive, it actually reduces your ambition as well, right? That's why porn is really bad for you, by the way. This is another thing. Yeah, people who go to hardcore porn masturbate so much that they lose all their testosterone, things like that, and they lose their creativity. So there's a lot of research being shown on that. So sure, that ambition, but ambition by itself can be really destructive if your ambition is selfish. So I'm not, there's different kinds of motivations. That's a really good point. And I'm talking about the motivation that makes you happy. So you can have a really reckless, destructive motivation through this ambition is usually can be often sound like a sort of a negative word, but if you take it in a positive way, ambition means to make the world a better place. That's great, but even then that's really destructive to your motivation if the other, even if you're trying to do something good, like so you're trying to make a massive hospital, okay, you've got a huge ambition, that can actually be really dangerous. What happens if it fails, right? That's actually destructive as well. So you want to reduce your ego. So thank you for that comment because it helps me explain. The less your ego is about is in your motivation, and your motivation is truly good. It's not so good if you got an ego to show off to other people how good you are. Okay, so the more pure that goodness is, the more motivated you're going to be for long term, and the more you're going to be happier. And another comment, oh, stop sin. I'm trying to click on the right, but some people say religion stops sequel ambition by blanketing. Okay, stops sensual ambition. Okay, so sensual ambition by blanketing our emotions as feeling urged by the devil. So basically, I think what Iron Egg Skill is saying is that a lot of things we want to do are labeled as evil by religion, and I would say no. Religion actually just tells you not to do things that are bad for you. Okay, so for example, anal sex or something, yeah, religion or Islam says don't do it, and it is actually bad for you. You get more chance of all sorts of diseases. So that's a really good. I like that you made that point, so I could explain the other point. So that was cool. Okay, another random question. Please ask me a question. I'm going to copy another one. Hopefully, I won't copy the same one again. What have I got here? It's kind of random. I've got a massive list. Do we have to argue to learn from people who have different opinions from us? Hmm. Okay. So, um, so in Islam, there's a couple of interesting sayings. One is that you should go all the way to China to learn. So you got to be like a student. Try to be a student your whole life. And if you're a student your whole life, you pick up wisdom. But if you are there to argue, say, imagine I'm teaching a lesson, I'm saying 1 + 1 is 2, and somebody just goes, hang on a minute, I'm not sure about that. And like, keep just, but say, look, there's one, there's another one, there's two. And it's like, no, but I'm not. If you're arguing, you're not learning. And the reason why that's really important is because nowadays we think it's good to argue. We think it's a way to learn, like you're really testing each other's understanding by arguing, but you're not. You're actually not listening, so you're not absorbing anything. That's what you have in parliament, people just arguing with each other and they're not listening to the other person's argument, and then we never grow up. We never learn from each other. This is a massive problem, and especially in modern Western societies. Everybody's like, I'm on this side of the argument. Like, I don't know, let's talk about COVID jabs, for example. COVID jabs are good. And the other person says COVID jabs are bad. And nobody's listening to the other person. So nobody's learning and finding out what's important. And the reason why that's so bad is that maybe there's a solution somewhere else that's nothing to do with COVID jabs or not. For example, focusing on your health seems to be far more effective than COVID jabs. Any thoughts about that, Derek?
Um, yeah, I mean,
Would you
don't know what
say
to
it's
say
hard? Let me
really.
ask you a question. Is it hard to listen to someone who has a different opinion to yourself? What do you think personally?
Sometimes if you feel strongly about something and you think you're right, then yeah, it can
Hmm.
be. But you have to be open-minded in a way that you can't, for example, think you're right about something you don't have enough knowledge, and maybe the other person might be knowledgeable about that thing, and you should be ready to listen and maybe accept that you're wrong, for example.
Which is, in reality, is extremely hard. Would you agree
Yeah, of
to
course,
do
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
What you're saying, yeah,
Stubbornness
it's
is quite, a problem.
yeah, and then we are the ones who suffer if we're not learning from life's problems, and we're the ones who suffer, right? Anyway,
Mm.
so I'm just randomly clicking on any comments. So I think we should look as points as new, discussed, and ongoing problems. Okay. I'm trying to guess what that means because I know Iron Egg Skill is trying his best. Literally, I'll say, what does it say? Literally, I'll say that's new if I don't necessarily agree, but I think, oh, I get it. Cool. Okay. So that's
Yeah, I
nice.
get it. Yeah,
If you
yeah,
can
that's good.
do that, if you can say if you come across some, but that's incredibly rare. So in terms of COVID, we can see the country is so divided, and
Mm.
each group thinks the other group is stupid. Yeah, they come to the table, as it were, saying, "You're stupid. Let me explain to you." Right? That's what each group is saying, and so that doesn't help anybody, and that's happening within families in our own family in parts of it, let's say, right? People don't listen to each other. Even before you open your mouth, the other person's wrong, and so this is incredibly rare. And if somebody can do what Iron Egg Skill is saying, you know to be able to say that's new and then contemplate on it, yeah, and think about during the day, that's an awesome thing to be able to do and come back the next day. And I think that's a really wise thing to do. The reason why it's really wise and it's in line with Islam, I try to keep reminding myself to quote something from Islam when I'm saying these things. So Islam is about being really calm. So there's a word called sabr, which means patience, and the way to be patient, okay, and that's the key to so much success in spirituality, is to not let yourself get emotional or too sad. In fact, they're related. The I was watching a great video on what's that
Hello?
long-haired guy, the funny
Yeah.
comedian is long hair. He does. Oh, yeah, your volume's really low. I don't know why, Tarek. I can hear vaguely. No, something's gone wrong. Let me click a button or something. I don't know. Have you pressed something?
WhatsApp call and I can't hear anymore.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good now. It's all good. Okay. All right. So yeah. So this no, I can't remember. Beginning to be famous comedian does his own shows, and he basically um, Russell Brand. That's the one. So yesterday, I think he's talking to a psychologist. He says that when we get basically emotional, well, we stop using our brains properly. This is a really shrunk down version of it. Okay, there's the higher level brain and there's the lowest level brain. We've been talking about this. Dorix is the one who's telling me about it, actually the prefrontal cortex. I was hearing about it again. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can just
So,
about hear you.
oh, you can't hear me? No.
I can just about hear
Hopefully.
you, but after the WhatsApp call I cancelled, it basically
Yeah.
it's not going in my earphones anymore. I can just hear you on the phone.
Oh, oh
Hello?
man. Okay. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. Thank you, Iron Egg Gill, Russell Brand. Yes, the live action version of Shaggy from. Okay, no, I'm not going to take insults about other people. I like Russell Brand. Okay, so yeah. So in his show, they're talking about being calm. So to be able to do this thing that Iron Egg Skill says about being calm enough to think about and come back the next day, you well stay calm, and then that's the way your brain actually works. If you're not, there's what we call the lizard brain. It's not a proper psychological term. I'm not sure. Okay, it's the kind of most ancient part of your brain, and it works on automatic. If you let your emotions control you, you won't learn stuff. You just keep doing what you already believe. Cool. I like the feedback. I can hear you, so that's good. I'm glad you can hear me. That's good. I appreciate that. Okay, Timmy. I think you need. I think for next show we're gonna have to switch off or mute WhatsApp, isn't it? It's a bit of a troublemaker. Or maybe
Yeah,
use a
yeah, I just
laptop another
disable it or
time.
something next time. So yeah.
Yeah, we're always learning. Last time I got everything wrong on the show, but yeah. So do we have to argue to learn from people? Maybe sometimes the question makes it look like it's a stupid question, but actually, hardly anybody does this. I don't know many people who really listen to the other person's point of view, especially if they've got a point of view themselves. It's really rare in my own experience. Um, and so, yeah, I suppose there's not much to say except for that. What else could I say that's more convincing? Any thoughts, Tariq? Like, I've talked about how you need to stay calm, which is a really rare thing as well. Um, any other
Ask me
thoughts?
again.
So we're talking about staying calm and listening to people rather than arguing with them, and
Yeah, I
that
mean,
helps you learn.
for example, if you're talking to your partner,
Hmm.
you can, to be happier with them, you can, speak to them about, what they, you know, basically what they like, what they don't like, and that can improve things as well.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting point because in a relationship, things can get really intense because we expect so much of the other person. It's just how we
Sorry, I'm
are.
literally listening to you through the earpiece, and I'm making it as loud as I can, but it's only going through the
Oh
earpiece, so I
yeah,
can just
okay.
about hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So it can get very emotional. It's really hard to control having emotions in such a situation. And so and especially when the other person is not listening. So we can't expect people to immediately be on the same level as us. If we're trying to show a good example by being not emotional, we can't expect the other person to do exactly the same. We've got to be what I've talked about, being generous, being good, and for a long time showing the right example, and slowly people will reciprocate. Hopefully, that's the best you can do. So anyway, cool. That was interesting. Um,
Don't forget your
Picking
thoughts.
another question, random question. Here we go. How do you know if two people are a good match? Okay, so we're talking about romance here, I suppose. Maybe not romance, but there is this idea. I've been watching all sorts of dramas where they kind of have all these different relationships and they're all trying to figure out who is the right person for them. So what did I just watch? The Huntsman, some movie, not that good really, but basically, it's always in these Hollywood movies the most good-looking people fall in love. Okay, so that's not really a good example. Yeah, you should be aware of these kind of things. So about the kind of subconscious messages people are getting. So the subconscious message there is um, a very individualistic, materialistic approach to love, which is just look for a good-looking person. Okay, um, I'll put this. So no. So INX girl said that about the previous thing, and now we're on this one. Practice makes perfect. Okay. Maybe that's to do with this one or the previous one. I'm not sure. Comment, but appreciate the comment anyway. So first of all, you don't just look for good-looking people. Okay,
First
that's
of all, what, sorry?
subconscious. Don't just look for good-looking people. Okay, that is the basic level of understanding in romance in Western society. We often do look for good-looking people, and you go, hang on a minute, I'll be miserable if I look for an ugly person. We're not talking about finding an ugly person at all. In fact, there isn't really much of a difference between good looking and not good looking in reality. It's just a difference of makeup and all sorts of other things that you see in Hollywood movies, but you don't look at them carefully because you don't know all the tricks that are being played on you.
It is
Um,
important, but not priority.
yes, you should like a person, but as I try to point out, um, the you falling in love is actually training. We don't like to believe that. We like to believe it's a magical process. We've been told about this idea of the soulmate. It's actually a big myth. It makes no sense. There's no logical backing. Okay, the idea of a soulmate, this great myth, is that there's somebody perfect out there for you and you're meant to be for each other, and it just so happens that you bump into each other and that's the person you're supposed to be with. Okay, that's completely
Just
ridiculous,
so
and
what?
that's the person you're meant to be with.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what Hollywood movies do all the time. Okay, but we don't realize how ridiculous it is because we know it's ridiculous because so many people fall in love and then they fall out of love. Okay, so if there was a soulmate, how comes they have so many different relationships? The soulmate idea breaks down really quickly, easily disproved. If we're trying to be logical. Okay. And the other thing is, we try not to be logical. We like to be emotional, and then we make really bad decisions. And it really hurts us when we make those really bad decisions. We marry people who are not good people. And if you're going to have a relationship and you're going to be stuck with bad people, okay, people who don't have the same principles as you, then you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be happy for the sort of the honeymoon period. Um, yeah. Okay, cool. Yes. Thank you for disagreeing with me, okay? I think you can have many. Oh, you're not disagreeing with me because I didn't read it properly. I think you can have many soulmates in life. Oh, okay. So cool. So it's not the regular understanding of soulmates. Fine. But do you want to? So it depends. This could take two different angles, right? You could have many soulmates at the same night. Sorry, same time, if that's what you're talking about. I think you're talking about soulmates one after the other. So you'll break up with one person, then go to another one. That might sound okay, but in practice, that's going to be really bad for you emotionally. That you just go through one person after the other. So, all in reality, most people are really damaged by that, by breaking up and going to the next person, breaking up, going to the next person. It's
Does he
shown.
mean someone you just click with, or what? What does he mean? Maybe you can explain.
Oh, yeah. So I think soulmates usually means more than just a light-hearted relationship. I think soulmates usually means more than that. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
you can just elaborate and then, yeah.
Yeah, you could. Okay, there we go. Iron Egg Skills says something. What's this? But don't make a frame for the perfect partner, then of try to fit of change a person into that image. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, because
Hmm.
when we fall in love with a person, right, what we actually do, we don't really fall in love with that person. We create an image of that person, a bit like what I think you put them on a pedestal, like you actually have a sort of put them on a godlike level that they're perfect, and nobody's perfect. They're full of flaws. We're all really terrible people in many ways. Yeah, that's the if we as soon as you accept that we're all really terrible, completely flawed, and so many mistakes, then you start having a proper relationship with the other person. Okay, and when you don't do that, you're going to be seriously disappointed, and people are. So cool. Don't make a frame for the perfect partner. Yeah, I would say better than that, look for a good person. And the way you attract a good person is the idea of like attracts likes. So, this again in the Quran, it says, good people, good men are for good women, and bad men are for bad women. Okay, and there's all sorts of other similar verses to that, right? Okay, so like attracts like, and that makes sense. It's not a mythological idea. um, it's just like, say you're a liar. Some people think it's good to lie, right? If you think it's good to lie, then you get a short term win. You pass you cheat in the exam or something like that, right? Other people who think it's good to lie will be attracted to you, but people who think it's good to tell the truth will be like really put off by you, and they won't be attracted to you, and you won't have a relationship with them, right? Mostly, right? So like does attract like, and that was just one example of that. So if you want to have a good relationship, don't focus on a thing you might have seen on a movie. I did that, by the way. I thought, oh, that's really good. I didn't realize. I thought I was independently minded, but over the time, I realized that I'm just saying this person should be like this, and my wife should be like that. And it's like, hang on a minute, that's just like a freaking princess from a Disney movie or something I'm copying, right? Okay, so we are affected. Don't get affected. Try not to get affected, and try to focus on good qualities in people. Something somebody said here. What's this? Are you both soulmates? Am I missing something? Okay. So Iron Egg Skill is not my soulmate, I don't think. Um, or my brother's not my soulmate. That was my brother who was there a minute ago before his connection died. Oh, let me just try to get him back in. No, his connections died. All right. So I'm not sure who that. Maybe my wife is my wife, my soulmate. So that's an interesting question. Now I'll turn it into that question because it's more interesting and challenging. Um, I would say when I got married, a lot of interesting things happened, and I call them signs, and religious people go by signs. Or when things kind of go with the flow in the right direction with no effort, then I go with that, right? And there was even a dream, and all sorts of weird things happened, all sorts of seemingly impossible things happened. And so you could say she's my soulmate, and I can't say we're destined to be forever. There's no whatever definite thing that will ever happen. I don't believe in that idea, but I do believe that she's as good as I am, roughly. Okay, and I think we have a lot of principles, that we sacrifice a lot of money for charity and stuff like that. We agree on all those kind of things. So yeah, and it makes a difference. And so we are soulmates in some extent. Let me just go through for the last few seconds some comments. What's going on here? Actually, that's not true. I'm not into bad girls. I just don't keep a relationship in and out before it stains my character. So yeah, that's an interesting point. We can say all sorts of good things about ourselves, but this is my finishing point. If we say we're in a relationship with a bad person, then you should think, how comes I'm in the relationship with that person? That says something about me. Probably that you're equally bad or somewhat bad. I would say that logically makes sense, as I said before. Anyway, don't want to be difficult on you. I just making a logical argument there. But I really appreciate Iron Egg Skill and Adminzer, whatever. Sorry about saying what about your username, but not sure how to pronounce it. Thank you, everybody who's watching. Next class, Thursday as usual, 7 to 8 p.m. GMT +1, UK time basically. Please like and subscribe and at least press the like button if you think the show is useful for other people. If you press the like button, you encourage other people to watch it. And you don't need that thing, wasn't supposed to be there anymore. Thank you for watching. Peace be upon you. Catch you next week.